Welcome to this Roots Tech 2022 session, a comprehensive guide to finding your immigrant ancestors' hometown, Part 2. My name is Kimball Carter, and I'm a certified genealogist. You'll find the material for this presentation on my website, genealogypuzzlesolved.com/immigration. When you go to the site, this is the website that corresponds with the material that we're going to talk about today. You can click on the home. If you go to the home page for my website, you can click at the top right on the immigration link, and that will take you to this page. And you can then follow along with this. So first, this is Part 2. We talked about some of the other records in Part 1. You must find and analyze every census record. So this is very important for immigration research. Every federal census should be checked, every state census. Oftentimes non-population schedules might be used. Look at neighbors and any persons living nearby that came from the same place in the same year. Key censuses for immigration information are the 1900, 1910, 1920, and actually 1930 federal censuses. They list the dates of arrival and naturalization information. You want to compare the dates for the dates of arrival. They're often different. The truth is somewhere between those dates usually. If you see the column for under naturalization, AL stands for alien, PA for petition filed, and A for naturalized. So if they had filed their petition, they have PA. If they weren't naturalized and were from a foreign country, they were alien. And NA meant they had completed naturalization process. This is what those columns look like on the 1900 census, and here's an example of George Bauer. You can see over here it gives his year of immigration as 1847, that when he arrived, and that he was naturalized before this date, so he before 1900. 1910 census, again, same kind of thing. Here's another example of the same person. This time he said 1851 was when he arrived. So notice the difference. The truth is he arrived in 1850. And the 1920 census, this one's for a different person, George Rukauf. And George arrived in 1847. He's naturalized by 1920, and he said that he was naturalized in 1875. So that gives us a good idea of when he completed that process. So we want to look for people living with them or next door. They're often related or came from the same place. Look for family structure to match the family when you find them in their hometown records. You want to see that the relationships are consistent as they move from place to place. Here's Eliza Grein living in the household of Wilhelm Schneider, or listed as Snyder, but it's Schneider. And Elizabeth is his mother-in-law, is the mother of Catherine. Notice the interesting name for the place. It's actually Hessen-Darmstadt. This is a table used. I create tables like this when I'm analyzing records and comparing them. A census analysis, you can take the names of the people and then put the years across the top and compare the year they say that they were born in the census and where they were born, and see where there's consistency and difference. Typically we see this kind of thing where you see 1835, 34, 36, those years will vary. You can see children will show up in some censuses and they'll disappear, and some, like these two, look like they probably died young because they don't show up after 1870 at all, in 1875 or 1880. Now this incorporates the 1892, 75, and 65 censuses of New York. New York has great state census records. So always use those if they're available, because they help you chart the people, and sometimes you find people appearing in a state census that died between and don't show up in federal censuses. So you want to always be looking for these and compare them. They can be a very good tool. A chart is really helpful. Once in a while, in a census record, you may find the hometown that they came from in Europe. This is the case with this family. Konrad Grein came from Heidelbach, Germany. And the name of the place was spelled pretty close. Heidelbach. Heidelbach sounds the same. So that was a great find. Not very often, but once in a while. That's why you want to check every census record, because you never know which one might list it. United States church records. A study was done on German immigrants, and it showed that U.S. church records, if they were searched, listed the hometown 65 to 76% of the time if people bothered to search them. That's a great percentage. So if you have German ancestors, you definitely want to seek out these U.S. church records. Talk to family about where their grandparents, great-grandparents went to church, so you can figure out where the church records might be housed. Use city directories and maps to locate churches. So look at period maps and city directories. Oftentimes these churches just went through some name changes and still survive, and their records often survive. So here's one example record. This is a German church record for Daniel Ludwig Friedrich Wilhelm Ott. And he was born the 21st of January, 1808 in Boldebuch, Bustrau, Mecklenburg-Schwerin. He died the 16th of February, 1871 of asthma. He was 63 years old, 0 months and 25 days. He was buried the 18th of February on Ridge Road at the church there. This is really valuable record, great record. I found this when I was visiting my wife's family. This is from her side of the family. And I called the church that their family had gone to when her mother was young, and figured out where it was, asked them if they had records. They said, sure, we'd be happy to let you look at them. So I went over. It was a Lutheran church originally. And I asked them if I could look at the books, and they said, sure. They opened up the book, and it started at 1900. Well, I needed prior to 1900. I said, do you have the others? And they said, well, we think we do. So we went together and did some searching and found this closet down a hallway, and opened it up, and it was dusty, and there were piles of junk everywhere, and there was a pile of old books. And at the bottom of that pile, there was a book that looked very old and it was pretty good size. And I looked at it and I said, can we look at that one? And we pulled it out, and sure enough, it was the church records going back to about 1840 or 50. And we found a number of records for my wife's family in that book. So if you can, go in person. It's easy for someone to say on the phone, I can't find that. Or it's easy for them to say, well, I think we've got it. If you're there in person, there's a chance they'll help you can help them find the records, and then you can search through the records and find them yourself. Now this record was found online at Family Search via the catalog. So this is for Barbara Bauer, who was born in Großsachsen, Baden. This was found in St. Mary's Catholic Church in Indianapolis, Marion County. And the death record was 4th of January, 1886. She was buried the 6th of January. This record was really valuable. It does list her, the town, but the other records we'd seen from the family were from Leutershausen. So I went to check out the geography using Meyer's Gazetteer. If you don't use that, you need to use that if you're doing German research. And looked up Großsachsen, and it is right next door to Leutershausen. So that makes lots of sense. And after more research, we figured out that Großsachsen actually was within the parish of Hohenzollern, and Leutershausen was a separate parish. And she was born in Hohenzollern parish, and he was born in Leutershausen. If I could only search one record in the United States, and I could only choose one, I would probably choose U.S. church records to find the immigration information if it was pre-1906. If it was post-1906, I would use passenger records and naturalization. Naturalization would be number one. But if it was pre-1906, it would be U.S. church records. This is a great resource. This is a book called How to Find Your Family History in U.S. Church Records, a genealogist's guide. And this is written by Sonny Morton. This is a fantastic book to have. There's also a great video lecture that's free from Sonny on U.S. church records at the URL shown below. This link is on my website on the page that we're talking about, so you can find it there. Passenger lists. A key date is 1906. After 1906, U.S. arrival lists gave much more information, often including the hometown. Before 1906, lists rarely have the hometown. So you still want to get the older passenger list, but the likelihood of them telling you the hometown is much lower. Study the list to see if people are from the same place or listed near your ancestor. Then look to see if they end up living near them, because they probably are related somehow, or maybe from the same hometown. So here's a couple examples. Martin Hart, his 1909 arrival list gave his hometown as Thornley, England, and his last residence living with his brother in Trindon, Durham, near Thornley. What didn't it record? Well, it didn't record that Martin left a wife and children and deserted them in England. This list is from the Hamburg immigration lists, which are a great resource. There's links to this on the website also. This one is for Henry Cleese and his family, and it lists, here you can see, Seedorf, Lauenburg as the hometown. And that turned out to be correct, and we found all sorts of records there. Naturalization records can be gold mines. Understanding a little bit about the differences between time periods. 1790 to 1906, it was a state process, local courts. There was no standardization. Questions varied by state. The birthplace was usually just the country. In 1907, everything changed. It was a federal process. There were standardized forms and questions were included. These questions were included: name, date, and place of birth, spouse's name, spouse's date and place of birth, arrival date, port of arrival, ship's name, all children's names, ages, and birthplaces. Great information. The process. So 1790 to 1906, that you still had these three steps: declaration of intent, petition for naturalization, and certificate of citizenship. The only real difference was the timing between some of these, and typically it was about how long you had to be a resident. After 1907, you had to be after 1802, 5 years was required for residence in order to file for naturalization. The time frame varied by the dates as you see here. 2 years from 1790 to 1795, 5 years 1795 to 98, 14 years 1798 to 1802, and 5 years 1802 forward. And then the certificate of citizenship was granted. The best record, typically, the one you want for your ancestor is the petition, because it had the most questions that you want answered. Here's an example of a pre-1906 example. Martin Croghan, a farmer from County Roscommon, Ireland, September 1858 a birth date, arrival date of 27th May 1880. That's really good information, and it does have the county, so better than some. But here's what you can possibly get from post-1906. Martha Sieverding, her address, birthplace of Buchelsdorf, Germany, birth date of 30th January 1905, husband Bernard Sieverding, married on the 30th of June 1932, husband's birthplace of Hopen, Germany, his birth date 28th of December 1907, immigration date of 7th May 1928, the port of New York, ship name SS Columbus, and her name at immigration, her maiden name of Martha Hetver. So great information. Finding the records. So pre-1906 immigrants excuse me, could choose from any of the 5,000 federal, district, state, or local courts that had authority to grant citizenship. So finding where your pre-1906 ancestor naturalized can be challenging. You can find records on the Family Search Wiki article titled United States Naturalization Online Records. There's a link on my website. Online records can also be found on Ancestry, Family Search, Historical Records, and others. All naturalizations after the 26th of September 1906 that are 50 plus years old can be ordered online from the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. Read the article, U.S. Naturalization Records Class Handout Family Search Wiki. That's on my website also, the link to that. And make sure to read the Beginning Research in the United States Naturalization Records. That's a great article on the Family Search Wiki. It's also on my website, the link. Here's what you can find on the wiki, links to different records based on the state that might have your ancestor in them. So it's a great place to go. Make sure you use the Family Search Wiki when you get to that point. So that concludes part 2. Part 3 covers passports and border crossings, military, newspapers, family structure, and a colonial example. I hope you're learning something from these sessions and hope you will join me for part 3.